Now I am on part D of the lab measuring volume. I have a test tube here filled to the brim with water, and I'm going to use a 10 milliliter graduated cylinder to measure the water in the test tube. If I go over 10, I'll have to use a bigger graduated cylinder. Yep, and it goes over 10. So now I'm going to use a 25 milliliter graduated cylinder and pour in all the water I already put in the small one and pour in the rest of the water from the test tube. I'm going to tap it gently on the counter to get rid of bubbles, and I'm going to hold it at eye level, and I'm going to read it right on the bottom of the meniscus, which is the curved part. And to me, this looks like 15.0 milliliters. I will take a picture and you can make your own judgment on that. Okay, the next thing we want to measure is we want to fill an Erlenmeyer flask, one of these triangle size ones, fill it up with water, and then measure that. Okay, I've filled it to the brim with water. I'm going to use my 100 milliliter graduated cylinder to measure this. And I'm going to stop pouring when I get up to 100 because we may have to add these volumes together. And this is the largest graduated cylinder we have in lab. So it doesn't hold all of the volume. I'm going to tap it again gently to get rid of a few air bubbles. Sometimes you can tap it with your spatula to get rid of air bubbles. I'm going to hold it up to eye level, and this is just under 100 milliliters. So I'm going to add a little bit more so I can get it exactly to 100. And then that'll... Okay, the next thing we want to do is see how high 10 milliliters goes in a test tube. So I'm going to fill my small 10 milliliter graduated cylinder up with water to the 10 mark, and then I'll transfer that to a test tube. Now I filled it with a little bit too much, so I'm going to use a syringe, a pipette, a plastic pipette, and just take a little bit out, and I'm going to adjust it till I think it's right at 10. I think I put in one drop too much. Okay, so that looks right at 10 for me. I'll take a picture of it so you can... I'm going to pour it into a test tube, and I'm going to mark it with a marker. And when I pull this test tube out of my drawer, if I'm supposed to get approximately 10 milliliters, I know I just have to fill it pretty much 2/3 or 3/4 of the way full. So this way, if you need an approximate amount, you don't have to measure it every time. Oh, and I'm supposed to measure this with my ruler. So I think it's 8.50. And remember, we always do centimeters to the 100th place. Oops, I did 10 milliliters of water before I did 5. So let's do 5 milliliters now. So I'm just going to put 5 milliliters of water in. And I'm going to mark 5 milliliters with a marker at the bottom of the meniscus, and then measure that with my centimeter ruler. And I'm going to measure it to the hundredths place. So I get 4.35. Our next section is on density, and we are going to determine the density of water first. So I'm going to take a 50 milliliter graduated cylinder. I'm just going to shake it out to make sure it's as dry as possible. If you dry it with a paper towel, you're going to actually introduce a little more dirt from the paper towel than if you just accept that there's a tiny bit of water on it. Okay. Okay. I'm going to take and turn on my scale, and I'm going to take a 50 milliliter graduated cylinder and get the mass of the empty cylinder. So it looks like we need to zero the scale. There we go. So the empty graduated cylinder, 75. That must be a lucky number or something. Now I'm going to fill this graduated cylinder with 50 milliliters of water and try and get it exactly at the line, because I actually know what the density of water is, and so do you. So I'm hoping to get very close. And make sure whenever you're measuring liquids in a graduated cylinder that you hold the mark of the liquid up to your eye level. So now I'm going to zero the scale again, and I'm going to weigh the graduated cylinder with water, and our volume of water is 50.0 milliliters, and the mass of the graduated cylinder in water is 124.96 grams. Now I'll let you guys figure out the mass of the water and the density of water, and please show me the calculation set up on your paper.